Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. Now, in today's podcast, I wanted to give an update on the KPMG tip-off scandal. As common in the Big Four, these scandals go on for years and years and don't get resolved till many years later. Well, KPMG's former head of audit was recently fined $100,000 and censured by by PCOB. And this was because, as you remember, in that tip-off scandal, there was a partner that used to be part of the PCOB, and he tipped off partners of the accounts that would be reviewed. And then KPMG proceeded to try and fix those audits before they got reviewed. And this was basically a honeypot of trying to find unethical auditors at KPMG, because apparently a bunch of partners, including this guy, knew about it, and they all tried to do it. They were all in on it. Were okay with these audits being fixed before the regulator came in, even though that's not what you're supposed to do. And all of these partners, and they're partners too, they got fired. And I mean, there's been crazy things that happened to these people. Like, one guy went to prison, but I mean, I'm sure their careers are destroyed too. And it seems to me a little bit ridiculous. This guy got fined so little, $100,000, because you have to remember that he was the head of audit, or close to the head of audit at KPMG. You don't get to that position without having, a ton of experience, having held high executive positions before that where you make millions of dollars. And so I think that this guy got off light. I'm sure he's done with this whole thing. I'm sure he's glad to pay only $100,000 and be done with it, but I think it's just worse for his reputation. But I think there's a lot to be learned out of this. We can sit here and we can say all the bad things we want about KPMG. And I'll admit that I do that a lot here. Just because these type of things tend to happen to KPMG. KPMG had the huge tax fraud case, and then they have this. And these things matter because it shows the rot at the leadership level. And the way KPMG addressed it, they just replaced the people and said, we're going to do better going forward. But the people that they replace them with are people that were historically at KPMG in audit leadership. And so it's like, how do we know that they're completely removed from this unethical behavior? And if the unethical behavior is at the highest positions of KPMG, it's probably throughout the whole organization. And so I guess that's my 2 cents on KPMG. But I think there's more to this that can be learned. Like, you can shun these guys from society, these accountants, or anytime there's, where accountants get put to Capitol Hill and questioned about, how come you guys don't warn investors and all this? Like, these guys should be pulled up there and say that they need to understand this guy and the other partner's background. You want to get a full history. You want to do forensics on their careers, not just this one thing. You want to figure out, at what point did you think it was okay? Or, did your ethics become so bad that you think it's okay to do this? And, not only they're the people that did it, they're people that warned him, or that warned the accounts. There's people that were CC'd on emails and meetings where they all knew about this and they turned a blind eye, they participated in it. And you need to figure out what is wrong with the Big Four accounting firms. And in this particular case, let's just keep it the KPMG. You need to figure out what's wrong with KPMG, what's going into KPMG, so you need to dissect this. But I think KPMG has enough connections in large corporations, PCOB, et cetera, to where that's not going to happen. And I mean, if there is a case for an accounting firm to be broken up, KPMG would be the or a big four accounting firm to be broken up, similar to Arthur Andersen, it would be KPMG just because of all the ethical problems they've had. But if you're not going to do that, then you should utilize this guy and the other partners to figure out what went wrong in their careers and what's going on at KPMG, dissect that and try and fix it. And I mean, if that means you have to get rid of leadership, a lot of leadership positions, then I mean, it is what it is. You just have to, because that's the other thing too, right? Like at KPMG, you expect the people that were part of this leadership group to be fixing it. I don't think so. I think you have to get more junior people. You have to train them better. But also, it's even dumber than that because at the end of the day, this guy got fined $100,000, and this was like the worst case scenario, and he got fined $100,000. Now, if the PCAOB found something, do you think that it would have, it would have been $100,000? No, not to him personally, maybe to the firm. And so the penalties weren't even there, and they still cheated. So you need to get that fixed. And I think that's the moral that people can take away from this, is that it's never worth doing this type of stuff because the impact that it's going to have on your career isn't worth it. Where if you are more apologetic and you really are sorrowful that you made the mistake and that you're going to improve, then people are understanding and they'll work with you. But if you're just doing unethical stuff, then you're going to ruin your whole career and you can be fined personally, which isn't worth it. So I think that's the thing too, but also learning how these people, the evolution of their careers into unethical behavior and moving into leadership positions with that unethical behavior. That's the most concerning, is that the leadership in KPMG can just turn the blind eye to this stuff. So I think that's what we can take from this, and hopefully this is closure to this incident. But that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to get future updates and check out the show notes for useful links. Thanks for listening.